So we're going to come clean with you here. The only thing more nerve-wracking than addressing 5,000 people who, by the way, are in the rain is knowing that you are sharing a stage with the likes of Dean Noria, Saul Khan, and who could forget, the one and only Casey Gerald.
I think what Sarah's trying to say is we know this isn't exactly laughing weather, but please laugh at our jokes. No, seriously, my children are here and they still think Daddy's funny, so please. It truly is an honor, though, to be standing here before all of you today, especially because so many of you here are responsible for the successes of our student body.
To our families, friends, partners, and members of the HBS faculty, administration, and staff, we would like to take a moment on behalf of our entire student body to thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Now, it wouldn't be a Jordan and Sarah speech without us mentioning the fact that we're both from New Mexico. That's right. Against all odds, Sarah and I actually both hail from the land of enchantment. But as Karen alluded to, that's just about where the surface level similarities ended. She mentioned Sarah spent the last couple of years before HBS in San Francisco.
And Jordan spent a few years before HBS in the very cosmopolitan town of Lubbock, Texas.
That's right. I came to HBS with a wife of 5 years and an 18-month-old son.
And all I brought with me was two suitcases and a somewhat neglected houseplant. But, you know, it's interesting. On the surface, it seems unlikely that Jordan and I would have even been friends, let alone choose to spend the next year together working on the Student Association. But what really brought us together was a shared experience of the power of this very HBS community.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Coming into HBS, I had no idea what to expect. I mean, I had no clue. Now, I had seen The Social Network, you know, the movie about the founding of Facebook across the river. So I think I assumed that all HBS students would be kind of these statuesque genetic perfections like the Winklevoss twins. And actually, my hunch proved to be pretty correct. HBS students are brilliant, funny, and ridiculously good-looking. But I'm not sure I expected to learn all the things that I would soon learn from them, and not necessarily about the things you might expect. Most of the lessons came from seemingly small things. Humble deeds, subtle decisions, the sort of things that don't necessarily leap off a page and scream for attention, but whose impact is almost impossible to measure.
I'll always remember the first time I experienced this at HBS. During the first week of school, my section learned that one of our classmates was actually going through a pretty complex surgery that would cause him to miss the first several days of classes. And so when he finally joined us, he stood up and he introduced himself. And in his introduction, he told us that more than half of our section, who, by the way, at the time were complete strangers, had emailed him, wishing him a speedy recovery, offering to take notes, even asking if he was accepting visitors.
And we're sure each of you has similar stories about your time at HBS. For me, it was the number of classmates who volunteered their babysitting services for our son Cooper so that Brittany and I could go on a date. Free babysitting services, by the way. For you, it might have been the typical private equity or finance ninja who volunteered hours and hours and hours of their time coaching you on how to construct a DCF valuation in Excel. Or maybe it was the consultant who took time out of their day to help you prep for your first case interview. Or maybe more importantly, it was a section mate who served as a shoulder to lean on when you experienced a personal or family tragedy. These are all perfect examples of acts of selflessness that will never generate headlines, but that tell you so much about a person and about a community.
As we look at these stories, we actually learn something about leadership that perhaps wasn't always made explicit in our classes. That a leader is not always defined by the actions and the accomplishments that yield headlines. It's not necessarily about having a larger-than-life personality or even necessarily about setting forth an ambitious vision. What this community taught Jordan and I is that leadership is more often found in the small and actionable things that people do with good hearts and with an intention to serve others. We frequently found more inspiration in the acts of service performed by our peers than we did in the case protagonists we studied. What our classmates taught us is that the most impactful leaders serve others wholeheartedly, often quietly, without pretense, pride, or any hope of recognition.
And these are lessons that we're truly grateful to have learned during our time at HBS, because as a class, our greatest opportunities and our greatest challenges are still yet to come. And as I was thinking about that, I was actually reminded of one of my favorite musicians. He's a guy named Ben Rector, and he's got a line in one of his songs, and it's simple, but it's really poignant. He says, "Life is not the mountaintops, it's the walking in between." And he's right. Life is about more than just the mountaintops or the headline-worthy times, but also about appreciating the everyday moments, the walking in between. And I think in our culture, that's easier said than done, right? Because what does someone do every time they're sitting on that mountaintop? They tweet about it, right? They Instagram it. Huh? They post it on Facebook. They post it to some sort of social media platform that I probably haven't even heard about yet. The point is, everybody loves to post a picture of themselves with Sir Alex Ferguson when he comes to an HBS classroom, or post on Facebook when they just got a brand new promotion. But nobody wants to post a picture on Instagram at 2 in the morning when they just changed a dirty diaper, or when they're struggling in finance or having a tough time finding a job. No, of course not. But the truth is that how we respond to those moments, how we approach those moments, is equally as important.
This reality is particularly relevant to our class, in which headline moments will be plenty. Look around you. We are surrounded by some of the most talented individuals in our peer group. Some will take companies public, others will hold elected office, and others will solve major world problems. It's amazing to look at our class, and it is going to be such a privilege to celebrate these headlines, including today in our graduation from this amazing institution. But if we're going to fulfill HBS's mission of being leaders that make a difference in the world, will it be enough to focus only on the headlines? Or rather, should we constantly be asking ourselves, are we being engaged, fathers and mothers, husbands and wives? Are we staying active in our communities? And are we conducting business honorably even when no one is watching? These issues don't always make the best posts on social media, but in them lays the power to truly make a difference not only in our own lives, but also in the lives of those around us.
So, class of 2014, as we gather here together to celebrate our time at Harvard Business School and our reentry into the real world, our hope is that we would not chase the headlines, but that we would write our own stories with a sense of sincerity and purpose and passion, that we wouldn't find our identities solely in those mountaintop moments, but in how we live our lives while we're walking in between.
Thank you for a tremendous and life-altering 2 years, and here's to many more together. Congratulations, class of 2014.